Hello. This painting is dedicated to the faculty and staff and students of Weiss High School. I am doing an homage to my favorite painting of all time, Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. I call this Starry Night, Howling Wolf. And I'm going to be making some changes too. So here's the original image here. And basically I'm going to start by drawing in the shape of the moon and the stars, and then I'll start working on the sky and cloud effects you see. I'll be working from the sky and then working my way forward. So what you see farthest away is what I'll start with, and then I'll be working my way closer to the foreground as I add to this. There will be some changes, as you'll notice, as we continue with this. So to start with, I'm going to be painting the shape of the moons and the stars. And looking at Van Gogh's painting, his moon is a slightly yellow-orange. And so I'm going to be working on just mixing some yellow and orange to begin with, and I'll be painting a shape of the moon, and I'll also be painting the various stars, just the actual shapes of the stars to begin with here. So let's get started. Using a small round brush, and kind of first just outline it just gently. Now the star shapes themselves are all pretty much just yellow, so I'm going to be painting those in next just with regular yellow. And I'm going to add a tiny bit of white to lighten them up a little bit and add to the opacity just slightly. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back on top with another coat, so these look a little bit more solid. I'm also going to do the same with the crescent moon. Okay, I'm going to give the crescent moon another coat. Okay, next I'm going to begin painting a glow around the moon. In the original painting, Van Gogh has a very faint white, yellow kind of like glow around the moon to start with. And so what I'm doing is I'm using that same small round brush that I have, and I've mixed a white and yellow. And what I'm doing is I'm just painting these little dashes of color going around the moon. Now in the original, this center part here is almost completely filled in. So I'm going to try to imitate that. I'm going to be as faithful as I possibly can using this technique to match the sky in Van Gogh's painting. I'm working a different way from him, so this is not going to look the same really. But I'm trying to give the impression of his technique. I'm trying to keep these brush strokes pretty close together, and as I continue adding these dashes of color, they will be overlapping a little bit. Okay, next I'm going to start painting glows around the stars in a similar fashion to the moon. For the stars in his painting, Van Gogh used a very, very light blue, and that's what I'll begin with. Okay, I've mixed a very light blue, mostly white, with a little bit of blue mixed into it. I've also added a little bit of water to it to thin out just slightly because I'm going to start off with these really, really small dashes of color going around the stars here. Okay, now I'm going back in with that same yellowish white that I used on the moon to increase the glow on the stars. And looking at the painting, I noticed that this one here has more of a glow about it, so I'm going to increase this a bit more. I've now mixed a slightly darker blue than I was using earlier, and I'm now going to start overlapping the moon and the star glows with this blue here and start filling out the sky. I'm also going to basically block in where the wind shapes appear within the painting. Okay, now I'm turning my attention to the motion of the wind, starting with a lighter blue. I'm also going to use a little bit of this light blue to extend the glow around the moon and the stars. I'm now going to use a little bit of white to increase the highlights in the wind forms. Now I'm going to continue working on the background part of the sky because right now, especially in areas like here, it looks very, very flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deepen the background using a slightly darker blue, and then I'm going to go back and add additional highlights as well. So kind of overlapping my brushwork a little bit with this slightly darker blue. I'm doing this away from the moon and the stars. Okay, now I'm going to be working on layering a few more highlights. So by darkening the sky a little bit more and increasing the highlights, it's making the stars and the moon glow a lot more than they were before. It also helps give a little bit more movement to the sky and more interest, and gives it more depth. I'm going back in with a little bit more light yellow to increase the glow of the moon. Okay, I'm pretty much finished with the top half now, so I'm going to continue working on the lower cloud layers, a little bit more of the sky that's exposed, and then I'll start adding the land. I'm going to pretty much avoid this part over here on my left because this is where the changes are going to be. In the original painting, there is a cypress tree that goes all the way to the top. That is going to be replaced eventually with a cliffside with the silhouette of a howling wolf on top. So now I'm going to start blocking in the clouds, cloud forms that are lower down, and start working my way down to here. And just kind of like make the shape of the cloud formation first. Now that it's blocked in, I'm going to go back in and add some of these lighter blues interior as well, and then I'll start working on the area below that. Okay, so now I'm going to be working on a little bit more sky under this white cloud here and these mountain ranges back here. I'm going to be simplifying the land masses. I'm going to take out all the houses and just work on the trees and everything for the ground because that's not really the important part for this painting. The important part is going to be the alterations I make to this part over here. So I'm going to work on the sky and then the mountain ranges, and then I'll start working on the ground. So Van Gogh used some black in this area here, so I'm kind of like imitating what he did here by introducing some black to the bottom of the cloud. And about this point, that fades to kind of like an indigo blue. Then there is a hill or mountain right here. So I'm going to make this part darker than the hills will be. He uses a lot of black in this section. And this area gets a little bit lighter towards this end in the original painting. Okay, I'm now at the very bottom of the canvas, and I'm going to be focusing on painting some of these tree forms that you see in the background right here until I get to the bottom of the canvas. So basically, my painting is stopping about right here, which means the information where all the houses and the church will be located would actually be below the bottom of my canvas here. So that's not even going to be part of the painting here. So I'll be focusing on these tree forms next. Okay, now it's time for the changes to the original design of the painting. Um, Normally, there would be a tall cypress tree right here. Instead, I'm going to be painting a silhouette of a cliffside over here, all in black, and then the silhouette of a howling wolf on top of that. Afterwards, I will add highlights to that.
Well, we're not really experiencing technical difficulties. Yours truly forgot to hit the record button for the next sequence. So what is missing is the outlining and painting of the silhouette of the wolf. I used a wolf image that I found online, as you can see here. And so we rejoin the video with me adding highlights to the wolf and to the silhouette.
So for the highlight on the wolf, I mixed a bit of yellow with a little bit of black. I'll probably go back in with lighter highlights when I'm done with this. Yeah, I can definitely tell when I have to. But I'm going to start adding highlights to the cliff side as well. So here's the finished painting, Starry Night, Howling Wolf. Hope you enjoyed the video, despite the technical imperfections and other problems that happen. And I hope you'll attempt to paint this yourself.